Srinivasan, Associate Professor from C, the session moderator for today. It gives me immense pleasure in welcoming one and all connected with us virtually for the first session of the final webinar series of #2020 titled Global Architecture Vision. Before commencing this session, I would like to request all participants to turn off the audio and video for a hassle-free experience. Also, kindly use the chat box to post your questions that would be addressed by the speaker after. Thank you. I would now request our convener of the event, Vice Principal Admin of C, Architect Lokesh Madhivanan sir, to welcome Architect Tono, our guest speaker for this session.
I welcome Architect Tono, sir. Thank you for accepting our invite and giving the presentation. And we will be delightful to watch your presentation, and our students is very much eager to see your presentation. And from on behalf of SEED, I'm thanking you once again, and I'm thanking our management, respected Chairman sir, Co-Chairman sir, Director sir, and Dean ENT and Dean Katankulattur for this tremendous support of this journey. And we'll make sure that this will be so interesting and excited journey. Thank you. I'm handing over the mic to the convener. Moderator.
Thank you, sir. May I now request the faculty coordinator of the session, Professor Architect Vijay ma'am, to introduce the speaker of the day. Ma'am.
Thank you, Shankini. Today's session, #2020 Global Architecture Vision Series 1. We have a very special guest speaker, Architect Ar.TonoFernandez-Global, partner, IDOM. He has done Master in Architecture and Urban Planning from Polytechnic University of Catalonia in Barcelona. After studying in Technical School of Architecture of Navarra in Pamplona, he also done Master in City Science from Polytechnic University of Madrid in 2016. Also, registered architect in Official College of Architects of Spain. From 2001 to 2013, he has been the team manager of IDOM Architecture in Barcelona, Brazil, and Poland. He is currently leader of Mixed Reuse Ecosystem Division in IDOM. He is working already in Arabia and India and has a wide experience in Peru, Luxembourg, Costa Rica, Brazil, Mexico, Poland, Libya, and also other global countries. Architect Tono has experience in many different typologies, and most of his work, recognized in many architecture competitions, have been finally completely designed and built. His teaching and research tasks include collaboration as invited professor at the Aarhus University in Denmark, Ibero-American University in Mexico, International University of Catalonia, and Search School of Official College of Architects in Spain. A very warm welcome to Architect Tono. It's a great privilege and honor for us to have you in #2020 SRM Seed, SRM Institute of Science and Technology, Ramapuram campus. Thanks a lot for accepting our invite, sir. Now I invite our special guest, Architect Tono, to share his global experiences.
Okay, thank you very much to you all. It's the pleasure is mine. Honestly, I'm quite happy as you know, I've been in the last almost 4 years working in India, and for me it's a pleasure having the chance on sharing. I don't know if finally when we finish this presentation, you will see, you can judge if it's something we have learned or not. I hope that you find it useful, and also for the students, because we have tried to work hard on finding how to approach the two cultures. Okay, so maybe I can begin to share my screen and where I have the competition. 1 second. I don't know if you see it. Can anyone tell me if you can see the screen?
Yes, sir. It's perfect. Yes, sir. And you're audible.
Okay. Great. So the presentation is divided in 4 parts. First, just a little presentation of myself, because I think it's important for you to understand in the environment I work, and to understand that it's quite difficult for it would be have been like impossible to understand the things I'm going to talk about and the work as I understand it now without not understanding the environment I work in. Afterwards, I will talk a little bit about the cultural issue I found and many characteristics of it. Then I will talk a little bit about the shift that this I had to do, and most of my team have done in order to be able to work abroad. And finally, I will put just one example, which is the India International Convention Exhibition Center, which is not I'm not the aim of the talk is not at all on sharing the project or anyone to understand very well the project, but just to put some highlights in front of your eyes in order to see if that for to say abstract strategy that I will talk before about has been useful for India and for your country. So very quickly, I work in IDOM, which is a consultancy, architecture, and engineering company with 3,500 people, with more than 40 offices all around the world. I live here in Bilbao. I work very close to this building, which are our headquarters in Bilbao. And architecture and urbanism and landscape projects are just one of the projects that you can find in IDOM. Okay, this means that I used to work many times with a lot of people that doesn't have that has very little things to do with me in terms of education and in terms of how they feel the world, how they see things. And this is quite useful, at least for me, in order to reshape my thoughts again and again. I'm mostly working now since 5 years ago in what we can call mixed-use ecosystems, which are not exactly the territorial planning of a city, but that kind of developments that were done since until the Industrial Revolution in Europe. What happened then is that there was a shift in between the living and the working and the fun and whatever, because the environmental conditions that didn't allow people to work, close to the work, to live close to the work. And finally, we found that the modern movement, like part of that solution in terms of mostly health, but with some problems that maybe we all know in many, many ways. So we are working now in mixed-use ecosystems where each and every of our urban settlements before that industrial revolution. More or less in this kind of sizes, which are about 100 hectares. ICC project you will see is 90 hectares more or less, which is like 8 blocks in the Barcelona enlargement, and about 7 avenues and 13 streets of Manhattan. This is more or less the science I'm working on. Okay, just a brief on since when we are in India. We are in India since more or less 10 years ago. We did this Nalanda University competition. You might know about it. So it was the beginning of our works. Afterwards, we won the Mohali Exhibition Center, which has not been built. The East Delhi Hub extension in New Delhi, which is a TOD development currently ongoing, has been stopped also because of political issues, but currently it's ongoing, and we hopefully will begin the construction next year. And which is a part of the city, itself, with a high density system, trying to reduce the mostly the problems regarding with mobility in New Delhi. And finally, we are working on this 2,500,000 square meters complex in Dwarka, very close to the Indira Gandhi Airport. You see, it's a convention center, 5 halls, exhibition halls with a great foyer, almost 1 kilometer, an arena, and MUD development with a commercial center and many offices and hotels and some a little piece of housing. Okay, our conditions for you to understand the way we are approached. We are more working, not understanding the work of the architect like the director of everything, which must know about everything, but just a coordinator, but that is always working with a lot of people, sometimes in a very not very order way, but always trying to be open to what we hear, to what we listen, to what we see, and trying to learn as much as possible from others. What we do, for you to understand, is quite different. We don't have like a way of doing things in terms of I want to work with concrete. I want to work with. I want to make, for example, white buildings. I want to make cultural buildings. We try to face everything, trying to count with the best people we find. And for example, we have worked with Frank Gehry in the Guggenheim Museum in Bilbao, like local architects, and also which is, as you know, a very technological building, which is almost the epitome of the globalization. And also we have work. This happened in 1997, but also we have work in 2019. We have been awarded with the Aga Khan Prize for the extension of the University of Bombay in Senegal, and which is something quite different. We are here facing very low tech building with local technologies. People there in the place has even fabricated the materials and rethinking the circular economy in a much in a smaller scale, and so we are not we the way we do things and what we do are quite sometimes different from many of the studios you can find there. Not in terms, I'm not talking about quality, but I'm talking about the strategy. Okay, what happens with this cultural issue I would like to talk about? So I began to work on this because there was no work in Spain in 2008. We have a huge crisis, economic crisis, and in 2011-12, almost over the 70% of the architects didn't have work at all in Spain. So we have to change our approach. We have to go abroad and to search for work abroad, which was something quite unusual for us. So little by little, we begin about to have working on this idea of the culture and identity, how to face it. As I have been with my partners, been working all around the world. We have talked about culture as culture is a very old word, which has to do with cultivation and growth and the action of growing, but is linked deeply linked to the earth, and it's not in a cultivated piece of land, which is quite interesting. In the 16th century, we find that way of learning, okay, cultivating of mind, faculties, and manners, and it shifts also to in the 19th century to the way that some of the some of the people in the world began to understand the we, what we are, what is the identity. And when we began to define identity, okay, everything changed. I will explain it later. But now culture, we know it's a universal word that we use for everything. We use it for to define. We say that the sport is a culture, that food is culture, and also we have already heard that sex is culture. So I would like to talk a little bit about culture and define it a little bit more. What happened was that we have a little delusion on the cultural identity. Why? Because we have found that what is cultural identity is, for us, is an ideological and psychological constructor, which is quite useful for protecting ourselves from what is outside. It can be no matter individual or collective, but it's something that is useful to protect ourselves. And it's defined by psychological space. You can see here in gray color, with very clear limits, with a very clear out and in, and with a core, which is, for to say, the big bang of the identity. So there's some kind of definition on what is inside and outside this cultural identity, and the definition of a monad, which is the core, and someone has to do it. What happens when we see two cultures that each one monad and each one has its limits? Mostly, we to work in confrontation mood. Okay, we work in appropriation and differentiation, on categorization by discarding, and trying to find the differences. That we even find them in between each words, because sometimes in each culture, even there's people that can say we and the other we, and that can maybe understand that there are little circles here in also inside each one of the big cultures we see now. So complexity is even bigger than the drawing you see here. Of course, there will be one culture with more power than the other. It's probably we will find abuse and no dialogue, and because it's the strong doesn't used to talk too much, and what can happen very in an easy way is that the global categories will create a universal identity. We are calling this many decades ago globalization. And so finally, one of the cultural worlds is isolated. There's a reduction of the singularities and finally disappears. This is quite important and dramatic when, for example, we are talking about language, which is not also the way we communicate, but the way we think. It's time a language disappears. One way of thinking of the humanity disappears also. So we are here in this way, and this is the way we began thinking on, and when we went abroad. This is a result, but the process is, I want to talk a little bit the process. When we are fighting on finding the differences and exclusions between the two worlds of culture, there's a reduction. And what happens? The one which is not so strong creates a protection cell, a lot of rules, a lot of movements, a lot of associations. The ethnotherms begins to grow, which is quite understandable, and there's a little narcissism because this creation of identity construction is huge, because of course no one wants to disappear. And so begins a little bit of victims and trying to find guilties in the other side, and huge efforts on pushing the other side, but the other side is quite strong and pushes also, talking about collateral damages. And we are stuck in this endless, not productive tension that separates ones from others. Of course, finally, which if it doesn't come, for example, a bigger brother to help this smaller or weaker culture, for to say, um, the protective measures will decrease, and a lot of problems will happen here, mostly social ones. To put this abstract presentation in for you to understand these terms, I'm going to talk a little bit about one example, two examples for to say in my own home, architectural ones. But because this is stacked, is for to say, you can find it in my town in Zaragoza, which there was a wonderful project done by Sahadet that uses, that is like somehow a project that uses the water as a universal concept in order to implant, even I must say, like an UFO here, this wonderful piece of bridge, but that has nothing to do with the culture where it's set. And we are facing here not what is similar, not the understanding on what, how do people in Spain understand water, but a universal concept of water that can be useful in order to produce any project you like. And this is the way that globalization works, at least as for my thought. And finally, also happens the other movement in the other side, that the weak does something in order to protect. And so has happened. For example, this is a village in my very close to where I was born. I used to spend here in all the summers in the Pyrenees, which are mountains in between France and Spain. And it's quite interesting. You see on the left how the village was. You see all the white facades, okay? And this was in 1950. But now, in order to defend ourselves, we have created that constructor, trying to think that recovering the past, but thinking that everything must be stone, and we are putting stone in front of all these wonderful facades, transforming, the reality of the past in a simulation of what it should be. But that is a construction also, and so we have in this incredible effort, we have lost our identity, in fact, because we are covering the identity in this case in a very, very physical way, and forgetting from where we come. This is not bad, but we are thinking on if we haven't lost something along the way, maybe we can do something instead of being in this way of thinking. And so in order to stop this, we have thought on a little bit in the world and going abroad. We have taken many ideas from a French philosopher, which is Francois Lyotard, which has wrote a lot about culture and identity. And I challenge you, and we have challenged ourselves during the work we have done on thinking on the culture as the key, and thinking on its drop like a resource which is that belongs to everyone, I will go deep on this idea afterwards, but this is not easy. Why? Now we are merged in a distrust world. I have to be pessimistic in this way. From the propaganda in the USA, the absence of truth in philosophy in France, the speed and openness of the World Wide Web, and the absence of history that we are forgetting now because we have so many fake official news. The economic, and now we are suffering health crisis, the pillage of countries, the big countries against the little ones, and the absence of political responsibilities are, outside circumstances that are not helping us to have trust in the human being. Also, we have a problem with education, and we are forgetting about introducing philosophy. We are and history in the universities. So it's difficult for us to have a ground and to have a critical way of thinking, and not finding this critical spirit is taking us to some kind of food withdrawal, distrust. So how to work in this environment, which is what we see every day, at least in Europe. Going out of the box, exit the box to think out of it. And again, we need a cultural shift. And this is what we are trying to do. Thinking in the monad, thinking in the limits, and thinking in the cultural identity, and thinking if it does really exist, or is a constructed which is out of us. And thinking on who defines this constructor, and if it's useful at all. We go again to the idea of, I'm going to propose 6 ideas. We go again to the world, see it again, and think about all the drops we have on the sea. Thinking again culture as an ocean, and thinking in that each one of the drops we have in the sea are just cultural resources. We are not talking about limits. We are not talking about monad and a limit for the cultural world. We can think in a much more biological way that each one of the drops of the sea are just resources, cultural resources, and understanding culture not as a circle with inside and outside, but as a set of resources. As I said, as a set of procedures and tools developed by humans to subsist in a very specific environment, and understanding that we can, if we listen carefully, we can understand each and every one of these resources, and with the help of others, trying to use it to make a better world. Our second proposal would be becoming translators. Becoming translators, we as architects becoming translators, avoiding both the identification on the core, because there's nothing more characteristic on culture but the essence of evolving and transformation, and it's not a frozen concept. Also, trying to avoid becoming translator with the identification of any one of the places in the circle, and defend each one of these resources, no matter Indian, no matter Spanish, no matter French, exploring, understanding, with comparison, but without discarrying, and also accepting a lot of tension in order to keep the conversation and to keep the possibility of talking, and to keep the possibility of understanding the others. When we face things like this, we can find that in between all the spaces we were forgetting, we have a space where we can find what is common, where the roots are almost the same, and not just thinking on the similar, but in what is common, pointing out what is common instead of the differences and similitudes, not reduction, avoiding reduction, and trying to think it as much as a set of resources we can use of both cultures. This will mean remain disabled. This will mean trying not to make free concessions or free, but still fight for understanding the other and not having a possessive attitude, thinking of my culture or prejudice, accepting authority, and or thinking that this is good or bad. This can help us to recover our past, because when we see the history of others, we began to understand also our history and recover it. Illuminate, so the looking at the past of other cultures can be very helpful for us to illuminate the past of our own culture. Also, we can appropriate. Why not copy paste? Why not taking out directly circumstances from others that are quite useful, because it's the way that the other culture has been has understood the relationship with the environment. We can put also in value our present in both cultures, because we are here rediscovering ourselves through the eyes of the other in the conversation and this never ending tension. And of course, we can redefine many concepts of each culture that maybe we can find they are wrong. This adventure has two mainly objectives. First, rediscover ourselves, and second, understand the others as the tool that is making us, that's helping us to find this discovering, because the eyes of the others as the eyes of our friends in the daily day are quite useful to understand ourselves. And second, find a balance between these two words we have talked, the little culture, the big culture, the globalization, the locals, and the tolerance and assimilation, and that defense of the singularity, while there's a huge requirement of universality that we all feel. So how these ideas has helped us to work in this project, I have mentioned before in the IICC. First, you must know, as I have mentioned, it's 2,500,000 square meters of convention and exhibition centers in Dwarka, in New Delhi. The scope we have developed is the schematic design, the tender document. We have done the tender documents and also technical assistance during the development of the final design. That is something that Larsen Tubro, with I think great success is doing right now. The initial schedule of the project was 4 months, which was, as you might imagine, for this incredible amount of square meters, quite a challenge. And okay, we are now on the construction stage. The initial aspirations we've got was mainly when we face India, of course, we thought very quickly about memory as you know, as the first thing on take into account, and before taking every step. We have thought about the wellness and the community, feeling that the step wells can create the presence of the incredible palaces, and also this huge loft for technology and that we find every day in India. Another challenge was reflecting the diversity, which is This is one of the most interesting things you can find in India, not putting away anyone. And this sense of modernization that India is involved in, and that is making India to grow like no other country in the world. So we, in the competition, here you have the plot and the Indira Gandhi Airport. Delhi is in the north. And we tried, as you must see here in the competition drawings, we tried to work with some concepts we loved about Vastu Shastra, and but reshaping this concept a little bit. Here you can see all the 6 exhibition centers, the arena, the MUD split it in 2 parts, with hotels and offices and some living areas, and the convention center in this point. Geometry was a great inspiration in all the project of the competition. And another interesting thing is that as we were always studying and understanding the central square of the Vastu like an empty space, in a very for to say contemporary attitude. We thought that this could be not the empty, but the place that was going to organize all the buildings, and that was also very, very effective in terms of circulation and management. So we tried to create a very singular exhibition center we have never seen before, which is focused in one center that distributes to all the places, and that creates also here an empty space in order to be for the exhibition halls to be able to grow. Here you see the airport, and here in the north, New Delhi. An interesting issue we have to deal with in a cultural way is symmetry. Symmetry is something that it's totally avoided in the European schools, but it's something that we find again and again in Indian culture. So this was quite a challenge to understand the symmetry and understanding where we can break it. You see this reference on the Fatehpur Sikri temple, and that building we tried to conceive that it was like a transport hub and the hall that distributes all the people that could even walk on the rooftops of the buildings. We also try to think a little bit about that technology I talked about before. But when we arrived, we won the competition. It happened that there was an initial master plan that has already all the permits obtained. So after many attempts, we have to forget about the project we have done before to reshape our brains and think in another project. And the situation was that we have to think not on reshaping the master plan. We could not do what we wanted to do, but trying to think on an approved master plan and trying to understand how we can understand this as an Indian master plan, and what were the opportunities now that we couldn't face all the extension and the organization of the buildings, but trying to shape each building where it was placed before with nothing much to say. So the scope of work we've got and the opportunities we have were reduced a lot. So we had to rethink everything from scratch. this is the initial master plan on the left, and what we have done finally. Of course, that we try to take these tools, these resources, these these little things we can use in order to understand how to face this challenge. We again we forget about the bus disaster scheme, but we went again directly to geometry, which we find is quite important in Indian architecture, and we try to create a framework of 80 per 80 meters squares. You can see the evolution and how we introduce the initial master plan and trying to place it in a very comprehensive and geometrical order that could be, that could manage all the system. Second, of course, art was incredibly important. We began to work with that idea, wonderful, that was amazing for us, of the rangolis, because it's quite interesting. This concept is rangoli is something that says people hello, and this complex is something is quite close to the airport, so it's going to say hello also to the people that comes from abroad to India, not just when you land on the airplane, but also when you are on the air, because you will see all the rooftops from the air. So we work with this concept of aerial art, and we try to think on what we could do with all the rooftops, working with technology, working with landscape, with best vegetation, plants, flowers, whatever. So the final situation was something like this. You find on the left with some critical buildings, which were the arena, the convention center. You have it here, and the one very important building we call the Eye, which is this one, which is quite in front of the metro station that is going to be created here, and that was an opportunity to to make it a little bit shorter, this 1 kilometer length that you have to walk in order to go to the last exhibition hall. You see here New Delhi and all the complex. So we began to work. I have said in the first, you see, this is a model, a very initial one. You see, even in a construction stage, as you see, and Firdos was working here with us in Madrid, and you can see here that way of thinking on vegetation as pixels, and pixels that you could see from the air. Sometimes it's vegetation, sometimes are lights. As in the initial idea you saw, we tried people to go up and to find screens, and in a very we find a very fancy and interesting place that was finally this idea couldn't be done because of the restrictions from the airport. We felt that it would be wonderful to see all these messages that India could send you from the rooftops. Of course, we had to, once we couldn't do this master plan, we had to rethink the contemporary palace. And we have tried to understand how this palace are working, and what are the main tools that allows us to understand this as a palace. And it's something we have found also in relation with some Indian temples, which is that many times are divided in 3 levels, as you can see here. For example, also this palace in Yaj Mahal. So we try to work with these concepts, trying to understand them as much as we could. We try to understand also the icons all along the years in India, which are quite different ones from the others. And we had to understood diversity in a much richer way we used to do in our culture, because we used to, put a much more uniformal and flat projects. And as we have felt, as Indians has a much more open mind in this way, and you can accept many different things, put it in the same place, and trying to work with that. That is something that for our education is not very easy. So we have to understand what is a contemporary icon now, and how can we deal with that. And that issue of the contemporary temple, I have talked about this structure, this void. And finally, all this density that is talking with the air and with the sky. So we try to understand this reality and the step wells and the way we can work with technology, the way we can talk about symmetry, but not exactly a symmetry. Also, dancing was quite important, because this richness that we have found is incredible for us. It's like something is always in movement, but something is always frozen at the same time. And what happens in dance happens also in architecture. And there's a very interesting link between architecture and dance, even if you see these 2 images. So this way of understanding complexity in India is quite different to the way we understand complexity, because we used to work with reduction, not with adding and matching. And this has been quite difficult for us to understand after many years of other education. So we have tried to match very different things that we have done. We could have just done this in India. In no other place I could have worked like this, and it has been a very, very interesting experience, because you have to transcend yourself and the way you have done things all around your life, and think in another way, with that million details and this, as you can see here, bright and never-ending fractalities everywhere. One very interesting thing, this is an initial sketch, but it's useful to show that concept that was amazing for us, was this. We find that in India, decoration is a structure, and structure is also decoration. And this is quite far from the way we used to think in Europe. It is a very, very, we used to define in a very quickly way, as you can find in Mies van der Rohe, for example, and many other architects in Europe: structure, superstructure, scheme, and you mix everything. And in this way of mixing, we have found a richness that if we haven't had a chance of working, in India, it was something that it would be hidden for us for all our lives. You see how the way that everything is, mixed here, the structure, the ceilings, and there's a lot of work with reflections, different materials. With colors we are not used to work with, and even with materials we are not used to work with. trying to understand that richness that your culture has, that is quite far from the minimalism that is, leading our culture and the education in our universities. Trying to understand that light, that reflect materials. This is the hall for 6,000 people, which is all the floor will moved and create the full configurations. Also trying to work with this idea of precious materials, of gold, of silver, that is completely out of for example, you see this and you know that this is out of for sure this is not in Europe and this is not in USA. And last but not least, I want to highlight some management issues that sometimes no one in the university taking in the challenge that I am talking with a lot of students. It's something that in many times in the universities nobody tells you, but managing the project in a proper way is as much, and understanding your client is as important as having a very good project, because a very good project is not going to work if you don't understand your client and the management and the culture. And I want to point out some things we have worked with, which was quite difficult for us, and we are working with it daily in order to enhance our work in India. We never see anything in writing, and we have to understand that in India, WhatsApp is an official communication tool that has legal force. So this is not easy for us, as we come from a very different way of doing things. We have to understand very well our partners. In the last projects, we have worked with CP Kukrey Architects, like local partner, that has helped us with the local rules and with sometimes engineering. They have, for example, developed all the structure. You have to understand very well in a very different legal statement. And you must understand that client can disappear because there's a lot of movement in the political way. So you never will know what will be the next person that will lead your client in the next week. And this is quite challenging for us. There's also a problem with payments always, because there is a cultural that payment, you have to fight for your payments, and not saying the truth is sometimes something that can happen. And sometimes we sometimes we understand this as we judge this, and we are trying to find that this is just cultural, and that this can happen, but you have to understand it, to accept it, and to try to deal as in the best way, to understand that this is just another way of doing things, but not a better or worse way. So we have found that in India, you are always under negotiation, and if the agreement comes, it comes late for a culture that as you have felt, if you have treated with us in Europe and America, are more like white and black. And for us, there's a psychological weird. And also, as any situation in a Bollywood film can go to hell or be restored anytime, which is something also quite strange for us, but very interesting. So you must never give up and be strong. Among anything, trying to not to establish any judgment as per our values, but trying to understand the culture we are facing and understand the way people talks, why people is thinking and feeling in that way, and trying to find the resources and the culture and that drops that can be useful for us to to make the best project we can imagine. And if in the future it was okay, we are here now. LNT is building, I have to say, with a very good quality, at least as I have seen there. And with these photographs were photographs of, I think it was in January. Since then, it was impossible for me to make a trip because of the corona. And okay, we are here. We hope to finish all the works maybe in 1 or 2 years, and hopefully the Prime Minister will be able to hold the inauguration of all the complex. Thank you, and I think have finished by now.
Thank you so much, sir. It has been more than enlightening to explore further towards culture and how it's identified across the globe. Thank you so much for sharing with us a lot of insights and also your experience from working across the globe, along your hometown, and also in our capital city through the Dwarka project. We have a few interesting questions from our audience. Can we just start? Okay, so the first one to you is Tono. Have you ever used or have you thought about using Indian historical designs in your work outside of India? If yes, how was it welcome?
Okay, sorry, can you repeat the question?
Have you ever used or have you thought about using Indian historical designs in your work outside of India? If yes, how was it welcome?
Not honestly, not right now, but I'm pretty sure that I will do in the future. Not right now because India is the last country I have worked in. So I have never had a chance of working, for example, in abroad. But I'm pretty sure that Indian way of understanding architecture has changed me. And of course, I will use all the resources I have found in India in other projects for sure. I have no doubt it.
Okay. Thank you for sharing your works and influencing our cultural values. How the pandemic situation affects the culture and identity in designs and plan?
Honestly, in the point we are now with COVID, we are all suffering the situation, and of course, it's going to change the way we do many things in the buildings and mostly in the urban space. But I think that the most interesting thing we could do, instead of trying to reshape all our environment, was trying to reshape the way we dress, which will be much more easy for everyone to protect if we have some kind of problem, and to create a problem for others, changing the way we dress. That instead of changing one on each building, of the world, and one of each urban space, but for sure it's going to change. I don't know exactly how. Depends on the decision that governments will take and where they put the limits.
And which one will you choose, modernism or postmodernism, to impart cultural concepts in your design?
Sorry, can you repeat it?
Which one will you choose, modernism or postmodernism, to impart cultural concepts in your design?
Well, I don't want to choose. No, I mean, of course, modern names has a lot of things was great because has a lot to do with health. Modernism was mostly trying to deal with health, with light, with sun, with very very the concepts that are in the roots of comfort of the way we live. Afterwards, I think that we were a little bit bored, and we said, "Okay, we are here, but we can do something different." And yes, that postmodernism happens in the 80s as the way we understood all the things I have talked before. That absence of truth related with the French philosophy, the propaganda, that feeling we've got that we don't know exactly in what world we live. And so these postmodernisms grow very quickly. I One thing I loved about postmodernisms is that they were taken, like pieces of maybe in a way without too much reflection, just like little pieces of architecture and matching everything. But it's also, I think it was a great experiment, but has nothing to do with life in the terms of air and sun orientation or whatever. It was just a cultural fancy way of thinking that I think it's interesting because it's the way we have react to one part of our history, but I think it's dead.
And do you think the phenomenon of expressing cultural identity in architecture should be apparent with respect to its region, or can it be global?
I think that, as I have said, I would like not to confront the worlds, not to talk about global and local. Okay, of course, I understand that if any one of us can, if you see an Indian temple and you see a Catholic church, you will find a lot of differences. And this is the way that we have react to our environment, our situation, and in different cultures. But I would like to understand them like that drops of the sea of the culture I have talked before. And of course, this has something to do with the question before. Of course, some of these drops will change, okay, the other part of the sea if there's enough communication. But now, I don't know if the Indians in the, I don't know, three centuries ago were thinking that the Taj Mahal or the Fatehpur Sikri were Indian. I'm not quite sure about it. But now, if you go to India, everyone has accepted them as Indian culture and part of the culture, and there's not much relationship between Fatehpur Sikri and the Kurayawa temple, for example. So, of course, if there's enough contact, there will one culture will change the other, and I think this is a great thing because this is evolving and showing us different ways of the behavior of the human being. I cannot hear.
Okay, we have a few more quick questions. We have quick questions. Having worked around the world with different cultures, have you come across any startling resemblances in terms of historic features?
In terms of?
Historic features.
I don't understand very well I don't understand very well the question. Sorry, because I couldn't hear you very well. Can you repeat it, please?
Okay, I will repeat. Yeah, sure. Having worked around the world with different cultures, have you come across any startling resemblances in terms of historic features?
I don't know. I didn't understand. I don't know if you can make the question in another way.
Okay. I guess it's it's something about talking about resemblances when you work across the globe. Do you find any resemblances with two different cultural historic features?
Of course. Yes. But very resemblances and differences, and yeah, of course. For example, one very interesting thing that happened to me in the working in Peru and in Mexico is that we used to have a prejudice that South America is all the same, like India is all the same, or Europe is all the same. And it was quite interesting for me that it has nothing to do with this way of thinking because, for example, Mexicans has a very they allow that when you go to from one space to another, they allow big compressions and depressions of the on the shape of the space. They don't mind having the ceiling in 3 meters and afterwards having the ceiling in 20 meters high. They allow this experience, for example. But this is not that it happens in Peru. Peruvians don't like it, don't feel comfortable on this because of, I don't know, the climate, the history of the world. So in this way, one thing I have clear, I never work abroad if I don't have people from the country working with me. Without this, I cannot find the success for sure. So, for example, I found this while talking with people in Peru and while sharing the project with them and finding that they didn't like, it was not easy for them to say, I don't like, because it's something no one likes to say to a designer. But if you saw their eyes and the way they react, you felt that this was not exactly what they wanted. So of course, there are a lot of differences, very clear differences in the way we experience the space and we are comfortable with. But I repeat, instead of thinking on differences, I prefer on thinking on why these people is thinking like this and feeling like this in order to find the roots of the concept and then trying to use it as a tool for design.
It is an interesting question. Do you accept interns in item for your upcoming projects in India?
If I accept what? Yeah.
Do you accept interns in item for your upcoming projects in India?
If I accept, I don't understand the question.
I mean, this is a question from a student.
Is there internships available, sir?
Hello?
Do you accept interns in item for your
okay. Sorry. I haven't heard properly interns. Well, as Firdos knows, now we are working in these two very big projects in East Delhi and in Dwarka. But now we of course we are delighted on receiving CVs, but we have stopped right now our involving in India for I don't know exactly how long until we finish these two projects that we have to clarify and to finish before accepting internships. We have a team in India that is working in industrial projects, 70 people in Delhi. But until now, we are not doing the projects in India. We are working with Indian architects in Spain, like Firdos, and we are also, working with our Indian partners in New Delhi. But now we receive that CVs, but now we are not doing internships right now. Okay, it's not maybe in 6 months or whatever we will again do it.
And one quick question to close. You said we live in the kingdom of culture. That was on your presentation. So how was it to get acclimatized to our culture when you visited India for the first time?
I have to say that I visited India for this first time when I have a lot of hair. It happened in 1992. I left the career. I was in the second year or architecture. I left the career and I went to New Delhi, to Jaisalmer, to Rishikesh, made a big trip, drawing, thinking. I went also, I read a lot. I loved one philosopher you got there, which is Ramana Maharishi. So I read a lot about it, and it changes a lot my mind. And so I was in Tiruvannamalai in January, and I was shocked because it was like Mars for us. Then I felt also that something was going to happen because I was watching the MTV, Madonna dancing, and then I saw the reality of the country, and it was like two quite very, very different worlds there. I thought, okay, something is going to happen. And for me, it was shocked. I was living like in the street for many time and trying to understand your culture, the way you think. So mostly the way Indians understand time, which is quite different, like the way we understand time, and this spreads in everything. Everything is, affected by this way that of understanding time. And afterwards, I was shocked. When I arrived home again, I told them, you don't have to go to Mars, you have to go to India. And Indians are quite different to us, and it's quite interesting. You have to be wide open and always learning. And after I was traveling all around the world, and I went to my next trip happened 25 years after this initial trip, and I have seen a very different India. I have seen another country, and I have seen also a country which is quite proud of their history, which is something I like a lot. And so, okay, I don't know what will happen in the future, but I would like to be, honestly, India is so amazing and so big that I don't want to change the country now. I want to, I think that working in Delhi and making architecture in Delhi cannot be the same, not just in the management way, but in the cultural way of making in Chennai. Because the distance between Delhi and Chennai, the language is not the same. The distance is the same, like between Madrid and Helsinki. So of course there are links, but there are also very different ways of feeling the things that I think India is more than enough for one life. And if possible, I would like not to change the country.
Thank you so much, sir. So with that, we come to the end of our sessions. Okay. We have a lot of questions away, but we have a time constraints as well. And we would post these questions to you, and whenever we can hear back from you, we will have that question on our social media pages. Mm-hmm. And now I would request our co-convener and head of the department C, Professor Architect Ashok Kumar sir, to render a vote of thanks.
Okay.
Good afternoon, one and all. It's a great session, Architect TonoFernandez. We are very happy. We are very pleasure to have you today, this Sunday afternoon in Chennai, 2 to 3 p.m. IST. So it is a tough time for even for you, and Sunday you will be enjoying this weekends. But of course, we made it to come online to #2020, and hope we are for that. We are very much thankful to you on sharing your experience and your experiments and your thoughts and things like that, and all culturally. In the globally, what are the things you travel, and of course, it will be benefit for our students, all the participants in today's session. As you are discussing, India has a lot of cultural values, decades old, centuries old, and of course, millennium old heritages India has. So, all the structures, either culturally or sentimentally, whatever. No, you can learn many things from our cultural heritage. Of course, you are in your projects also. You are experimenting, and the ideas and thoughts have been put into the projects. And of course, it is the experiments in your point of view and your experimental views and things like that. It's really amazing to hear you today. I thank you for that once again.
Okay.
On behalf of faculties and students of SRM SEED, we thank you, all our coordinators, moderators, technical team, design team, and of course our management for giving us the opportunity to conduct this virtual #2020. And big thanks to all the participants who are actively participating this our #2020. And of course, a big thank you to Tono Fernandez. Thank you very much for this session. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for you all. Well, it has been a pleasure for me to be here, honestly, no matter if it's Sunday morning.
Thank you so much, sir.
Yeah, Nandri. Vanakkam.
Thank you so much, and my heartfelt thanks to all the participants today who have been a great audience. My heartfelt gratitude to all the students and faculties of SEED without whom this event would not have been possible. We will have a session in the Footprints of Architect series tomorrow by Architect Murli Murugan sir at 11 a.m., followed by another session in the same series at 12 p.m. by Architect Offduty. Thank you so much and have a pleasant day ahead. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, sir. Bye.